even if you're not able to join us live, that you are more than welcome to come back at your leisure and go back through our library of webinars and be able to listen in on the webinars that we have in our library as well. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing today is talking about the transition of these reentrants. They're going to talk about their lived experiences as they maneuver through the reentry process. And so their experiences from being incarcerated and then transitioning back into the community. And as advocates and practitioners, I think it's an important thing for us to be able to listen to people who have actually gone through their own experiences of what this is like for them. This is the first time that we have had the honor of hearing from people that have actually been in this situation. Some of them have been out back in their own communities for quite a while, and some have just recently been released and are still on probation. And so you'll hear their stories about what has been useful and what has been a challenge for them, continues to be a challenge for them, and so forth. And so we hope that what we'll be able to share with one another is going to be of use to those of us that are out in the field as a way to listen with not only our minds, but also with our hearts, to be able to think about the ways that we provide services, but also the ways that we welcome reentrants back into our community. And then these are the learning objectives that we hope that you'll be able to take away about learning about how their lived experiences impact the ways that the services that we provide for them, what do those mean for them, and also being able to learn from what their gaps that we may be able to fill, and how we need to adapt our services to be able to better serve their needs more effectively, and also to be able to kind of broaden our own perspectives and to open up our worldview of being able to share what they live through and being able to see it from their perspective. And so taking a shift of perspective and being able to appreciate what it is that they have gone through and continue to go through, and being able to appreciate that side of the world. And so to start out, I'd like to introduce Joann Wieda. She is the grant manager for the Department of Corrections in the state of Alaska. And she's been a real godsend to me. I just recently met her through another project that we're jointly working on. And she has been a real advocate in this area of reentry for quite a while. And in her work within the Department of Corrections, I think that she's been a real voice for Indigenous communities, not only in the state of Alaska, but I think also in the lower 48, because I think that one of the things that we are finding is that it's not very often that we see Indigenous members within the Department of Corrections, and yet we are one of the highest members that are incarcerated within the system. And so it's a real honor for me to introduce Joann Wieda. Joann?
The name put on me is of the Raven moiety. My Shinget name is Diakatsu. And I'd like to say thank you very much to Nan and the American Probation and Parole Officers Association for having me today. Nan mentioned my English name is Joann Wieda. I'm a Sea Alaska and Kootzwee shareholder, And I want to say thank you to all of you who are participating today on the webinar. We have a very important discussion today. As Nan mentioned, our rate of recidivism and incarceration for the Alaska Native people is disproportionate. In the handout section online, you'll find the statistics. I will just go over them briefly and share with you that 65% of the Alaska population is non-native, and only 15% is Alaska Native. Yet our native prison population is 38% Alaska Native. The state of Alaska recidivism rate overall is 60%. Our Alaska Native recidivism rate is 10% higher at 70%. Nan mentioned that I'm the grant manager for the Alaska Department of Corrections Reentry Unit. I have a handout in the handout section online that gives you a little bit more information about the Bureau of Justice Assistance grant that the Alaska Department of Corrections received. You can refer to that for more information on that grant. Something that's really, I find that is very important is working native to native. The Department of Correction is not a native entity, yet the Department of Correction would like to be a part of improving our statistics and helping our people. Our Alaska Native people have the strength and they are empowered to create positive change within our state. And the Department of Corrections would like to be a part of that circle of change to make a positive difference and improve the lives of our Native people throughout Alaska, people and families, reentrants, many that are impacted by these statistics and criminal justice. Many Department of Corrections employees are like-minded, like ourselves. They want to make a difference. While incarcerated, we have employees that, like education coordinators, that are extremely passionate about helping inmates and reentrants with their GED, education, technical training. The Department of Correction is very interested in creating culturally relevant programming. We need your help. We need the Alaska Native people to come forward and help us with the needs that we have for Department of Corrections. The Correction Center staff help plan to leave the prison and help with individuals returning home. With these services, we want to wrap around the reentrant by working with probation officers and providers to help our reentrants enter back into the community. We at the Department of Corrections want to make a positive difference by learning and working with Alaska Native people and organizations. My contact information is in the handout. You can email me. My email is joann.wieda@alaska.gov. And the Department of Correction looks forward to working with Alaska Native people through a work group that will be formed to address these needs of our people. It's not going to be an easy task, but we can do it. Alaska Native people do have the strength and we can make a change. Again, I want to say thank you to Bobby, Chet, and Jenny for being part of this panel. And now I will stay quiet and listen unless anyone has any questions. Ganesh Cheesh. Pam or Travis, it looks like Nan has dropped out. Are you online?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, there you are.
I was telling the audience that your audio was going in and out as well. And I was telling everyone that you're in Alaska and sometimes the connections are in and out as well. So we appreciate everyone's patience with us, and we're doing the best we can with the distance and everything else. So we will hopefully be able to get most of what is happening and you can hear and pull together. But most of what uh, Joann was talking about is in the handout. So we have several handouts up there, and Joann was talking about the statistics within the state of Alaska, and her contact information is on the handout as well. So if you want to follow back up with her regarding any of the statistics that she has written out or any of the things that she talked about, or even what she does in regards to her work in the state of Alaska or with the Department of Corrections. She has her contact information there, so you're more than welcome to follow up with her as well. So thank you very much, Joann, for that kind of information. And I'm so sorry, but I also did not introduce myself properly. I am very sorry for that. I am of the Dene Nation. I'm Navajo. I was born and raised in Arizona. I am of the Red Bottom Clan, born for the Big Water. And I'll introduce myself in my own language. Yat e she nan banali and shia chin sle twitwante e bashish chin kachini e dashanale ado e tobahe e dashache ado di e tsautso de e shiahi a. And so e kut a denens a sanshle. And so I just relay to you who my clans are and also my paternal grandmother and grandfathers. And also that I was born in Fort Defiance, Arizona, and that's where I was raised. And so thank you everyone again for joining us today, and thank you for all our relations that are here with us today. And so we will go on with panelist one. And so what they're going to do is just give a little introduction about themselves as a person, and then we have we're going to kind of be very free about the way that we're going to approach this panel today. And so we really want you to use the chat at the bottom or the Q&A section to post your questions. And then we will, once each of the panelists maybe have about 5 minutes just to kind of tell you who they are, a little bit about themselves, we'll come back around and pose general questions to all three of them. And then they can each answer, and that way we'll have an open type of discussion, and then you can pose your questions, and then we'll round back out to some general questions that we also had posted for them as well. And so we'll go with panelist one. So Bobby.
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm originally from Northway, Alaska. I'm an Upper Tanana native from Northway, and my grandparents was Marie and Harry, Marie Frank, and her father was named Stephen Northway, and her uncle was Walter Northway, which were my grandpas. And my grandpa lived to be 117, like the second oldest man in North America. And I asked him once, I said, how did you live to be so old, Grandpa? Was it working out, or was it what you ate? And he said, no, living by the river. That way I could see new things come and things go all the time, and it kept me on my toes. So I really thrive to live by the river again one day. I live in Fairbanks now, and getting out of prison, I think the thing that helped me best is getting connected with, first of all, the probation office. Were one of my biggest fans and advocates for me to stay out and help me do that. Whenever I would finish a course or whatnot, my probation officer would show up in support of me. And by me seeing that, I had the most respect for him. His name was James Johnson. He's he is definitely a role model. I see him in the public with his kids, say hi to him, and those are some of the things that I could say has been my strength getting out of prison. Also, I joined a reentry program, completed that, graduated that, and went on to get certification in my CDC 1 and working at a treatment center as a drug and alcohol counselor at Fairbanks Native Association here in Fairbanks. Um, all this all sums up to one thing: connection. That's the only way that I would have been able to make it, is being connected to the community the way that I am. If I was to work a job at a fast food place like I did when I first got out and never went after my goals, never got connected to the community the way I did, I think I would have had a much more chance of failing and going back to prison, because we all strive to be happy, and being happy at your job takes 8 hours of your day. So I'm at a job now where I'm really happy, and I'm connected to the community through being the chair of the Reentry Coalition here in Fairbanks, also being on the Diversity Council with the mayor, and being a peer support. I do a lot of peer support work, and I do advocacy on that here in Fairbanks. So I'm an advisory board member for the peer support, and I'm working with a larger part of Alaska getting that up and going, which we recently got. We got thumbs up on that. So on January 1st, we're going to start that. Um, what else can I say about myself in the next 2 minutes? I think, being humble, being connected to some of the things that I'm connected to is like, I still have my support group. We're stronger. We're stronger by the day. I have a mentor, which is my pastor, and I have a sponsor, which is somebody that walks through the 12 steps with me, and we do that through Narcotics Anonymous. So I have surrounded myself with all these layers on purpose. For me to be able to just say that, oh, it just happened that I ended up back in jail just because it just happened. Things happen. No, that's not what I want. So I put these layers up. That way I would have to go through all these different layers and see all these red flags and not pay it any mind, and ultimately make up the choice of going back. So it doesn't just happen. It The way I look at it, and I'm still dealing with probation as we speak. So I know that things can happen, but really, for it to happen, you'd really have to be ignoring a lot of red flags and not having these layers up. Um, it's kind of neat to be able to see myself transition from the person I used to be to the person that I am today. I definitely feel that Fairbanks Reentry has stepped up their game by starting a resource center called The Bridge, and I had a big part to do with that. And I feel that by us doing these things, we are able to make our community safer and stronger. And I hope that I could answer some questions today that help you better understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Bobby. I think you made some very, very good points about, being connected and making sure that you're surrounding yourself with some good people. And I really like how you said that you layer yourself. I think that that's one way to kind of give us a visual of how that as an Indigenous people that we think of that as a way of surrounding ourselves with goodness, or surrounding ourselves with prayer, or surrounding ourselves with protection. And that goes back to kind of think when you and I first met, we talked about, how our own cultures are enmeshed together, that you and I have share, language, and we share ancestors and from way back, and how that we cross paths at some point. And so when we think about connection and layers, it's not just in the here and now, it's from way back. And so those are the ways that I think that when you talk about those things and how they continue to serve you, and relying on those things to keep you on the path that you want to be on. So thank you for sharing those insights with us. Okay, let's go on to panelist 2.
Morning. My name is Chet Adkins. I am Yupik, Aleut, and white, although I would identify as Yupik because I had the good fortune and privilege to live with my grandparents in a village on the lower Kuskokwim River until I started school. And it was back in the day when subsistence was how we survived, and that wasn't a lifestyle choice. Back in the early 60s. I am 60 years old now. Between the ages of 18 and 55, I did just under 30 years incarcerated. My last incarceration period was 2 days short of 28 years. I was indoctrinated into a lot of the negative or antisocial stuff or criminal stuff by my father. How I got away from that was a process that started when I'd been incarcerated for about 12 or 14 years, when I began to take responsibility for the things I'd done in my life, to have remorse and guilt. Up to that point, my idea of remorse and guilt had been basically feeling sorry for myself for getting caught, which I think is something that happens with a lot of people that are incarcerated. However, I started to feel empathy and true remorse for the things that I'd done, and the consequences that continue to have impact even after all this time, which led me to a process of dealing with the why and how do I move on. And I think one of the big pieces for that was forgiveness. When you've done the things that I've done, and the things that a lot of people that are incarcerated have done, we don't feel worthy of forgiveness. And one of the big foundation pieces for me was was a faith-based community on the inside that allowed me to have a spiritual awakening. And I've never met anybody to have long-term success that didn't have some form of spiritual awakening. I'm not talking about religion, but I'm talking about coming to terms with the things we've done, and having our Creator, or however we see that person, help us through that process. When I went through that process, I also went through an RSAT program, 6-month RSAT program, and then after that, I worked in it for about 3 years after that, and then that helped me really move forward in reforming who I was, because it put me in a position where, not only was I challenging, confronting other people's beliefs and behaviors, I also had to confront my own beliefs and behaviors. So I had to take a really hard look at the things I did and why I did them, and what I really believed. And one of the fundamental things that I came to see about myself that I applied to myself and other people is when what I say and what I do won't match up, I'm full of crap, and I'm running game. At best, I'm telling people what they want to hear so I can go back to doing what I've always done. At worst, I'm lying to myself. And that was probably one of the really big watershed moments for me when I was going through that process. When I got out after 28 years, the Department of Corrections didn't prepare me at all. Things have gotten better since the 5 years I've been out, but they didn't recognize my parole date as a release date, so I didn't get any of the pre-release stuff. They do now recognize parole dates as release dates, so guys do get a little bit more support. But when I got put in the halfway house, I had a parole officer who was, my parole visits were basically him threatening to put me back in jail if I didn't do something or whatever, even though I wasn't doing anything. He was threatening me. I was having health issues that weren't being supported both before I got out and afterwards. And I was in an environment where I felt like an alien. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't belong in the free world anymore. And I've come to find out, especially anybody that's done any amount of time, that's a common, feeling that really doesn't get talked about, that needs to be talked about and worked through with every individual. And I hate to say it, but my own success is a pure accident. You can call it an accident or you can call it a God thing. I was getting my mind wrapped around the idea that I was going to go back to prison, not because I was doing anything wrong, but because I didn't feel I belonged in the free world anymore. And I went to the Native Men's Wellness Program at South Central Foundation, and then I went in there and met a man, and he was the first person that since I got out that sat down and met me where I was at, and helped me deal with the problems that I was having and the thoughts that I was having. And of all things, he was a retired CO, and we were able to connect and move forward. After that, I did a lot of the things that Bobby was talking about. I connected with people. I was able to put my pride aside and ask for help. I was able to reach out and tell people what I was thinking and feeling, because those were the things that were my big obstacles. Having a job is important. Having a roof over your head is important. Having connections to people is important. But if you don't feel like you are worthy of success, if you don't feel like you belong out here, you're not going to stay out here. And I think that's a big stumbling block that a lot of people have when they get out. And it's something that I've talked to with a lot of people, because I'm involved with working with a lot of guys that are getting out and talking to them. And my own journey, I said, I'm 65, I'm 60 years old now. And I've been out for 5 years. Because of the things that I've done, connecting with people, being honest with myself, being honest with other people. This is the first time in my life I can honestly say that I am happy. I'm married. I have good relationship with my 2 children. I have 9 grandchildren. I have 3 great-grandchildren, and I am involved with all of them in some form or another in their lives. And for the first time, because of being able to reach out and talk to people and express what's going on rather than bottle it up and try to just move through it, I'm in a much better place. And I think that's a key thing that, people, when you're working with somebody that's getting out, yes, job, housing, all those things are important. But if they don't get their head in the right place and want to be out here, they're not going to stay out here. I think that's something that gets missed a lot. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. I think those are really important things, because when you said, jobs are important and connections are important, but if you don't feel worthy of that in some way, if there's not something within inside yourself that feels that when you're okay with that, when you're okay with yourself, that sense of worthiness is a real important piece. And I think that you touched on that very, very well when you talked about your own experiences of being able to not only get past your own acceptance of self, but also the acceptance of your relationships with your father, and also getting past that, the acceptance of bringing your own family, your wife, your children, and and now the kind of life you're now leading with them. But the other piece that I really like is saying that being able to match things up for yourself. If what you say and what you do are not matching up for you, that's a good checkpoint for you to saying, that if there's a dissonance or a disconnect there, then that you have to take a step back, that there's something going on that doesn't feel right, or is something is going wrong. And I think that's a real good way it sounds like a real good way for you to do kind of a check-in for yourself, and that helps you to kind of make sure that you're not kind of doing this BS stuff with yourself and others. And so thank you very much for providing that insight for us. Okay, let's go on to panelist 3. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jenny, Jenny Brown, and I'm from Juneau, Alaska. I have been in and out of prison at Lemon Creek Correctional Center for the last 12 years or so. I'm currently out on parole for the last almost 3 years. In July will be 3 years that I've been out on parole. I've been on minimum supervision. I grew up in a small community, and I grew up very cultural. I grew up with my grandparents and my parents, my mom's parents, and I've learned different areas of what it's like to live Tlingit. I'm a full-blooded Tlingit. I am South Danton from the Raven moiety. I was taught our Tlingit songs and stories of our clan from the time I was 5 on. I practiced this for a lot of years until I was, I believe, 14, where I had a trauma happen. I was coming home from a babysitting job that I had, and I had stopped at this place where my brother was supposed to be at, and it was a party, and my brother was passed out and wouldn't wake up, and I had gotten raped at this party and decided I didn't want to stay, so I walked home. I proceeded not to tell anybody about what had happened because I was so ashamed of what happened, but I continued to be a good supporter of just being a great child, just trying to mask what had happened until I graduated high school and moved on to college. I'd gotten pregnant when I was 17 and had my son when I was 18. And then my parents took him so that I can complete college. And when I came back from college, I had had a trauma happen to me when I was in, when I was graduating from college. So my fiance had OD'd in front of me, and my dad had to come back to get me and bring me back to Alaska because I wasn't willing to come. I came back to Alaska and started my downhill spiral from there. I started hanging out with the wrong people. I started drinking a lot more, and I started using prescription opioids. And from then, I had graduated from prescription opioids to heroin and then to morphine. And I had started going to jail, I believe, when I was 30, and I was going in and out. And I have 4 felonies. 3 of them are drug related. And ever since I've been out on parole this time, so my last felony is when I had my epiphany. I had my awakening of, why am I doing this to myself? This isn't the life that I was supposed to have. I had thought about what I had done to my parents and what I had done to my grandparents, and basically had woken up. And I started attending religious services in the jail because it's a man's prison. We only get so often to go and do things. And so I started going and had my spiritual awakening because there was some people that had come from California that had a message for me and told me that what had happened at 14 wasn't my fault. And I had told nobody about this. So I had my spiritual awakening in jail, and this last felony that I'd gotten, I remember making the deal with God because I was suicidal also, that I asked him if he could get me out of that situation that I was in, which was an abusive relationship, that I would follow. I would do what God wants me to do. And so he had got me out of that situation and he put me in jail where I got in my last felony. And ever since then, I've turned my life around completely. I have 45 months clean of opiates. I am a peer support specialist. I had went down to the Kavanaugh protest. I've done a video for the CDC for RX awareness that has to do with Native American and Alaska Native prescription opioid addiction. And my video went live in 4 states, Alaska included, plus a lot of other organizations that are affiliated with this RX awareness campaign. But I like to speak out with my story, and I do a lot of peer support, but I don't do it for a job. I do it because I need to, because the people that have been incarcerated need help and they need somebody to listen to. And that's what brings me here today. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much, Jenny. That was very, very powerful. I thank you very much. You know, that when you talk as a survivor, it's a very honest story, and it's filled with so much emotion, and I can still hear that in the way that you tell it. And also, you know, when we're talking about your stories, that I think the underlying sense of courage that you have also comes through. And I remember the first time that you and I met and we talked, you know, and we talked for a long time. And we shared so many things because as both being survivors, that we share, you know, those moments where you know that you don't have a choice but to move on and to create those moments of that you become stronger than you really think you can be. And so I was, and I continue to be moved by what you have shared with us. And I hope that you're seeing a lot of the comments that people, and this goes for all three of you, the comments that the participants are posting about how moved they are about each of your stories, about, you know, giving you congratulations and kudos and messages of support and so forth. And so with all of those things, we do have some questions that were brought up as far as specific things. And for Bobby, one of the things that was brought up is, as a single man coming out of prison, how difficult was housing for you to find when you first came out? Was it hard to find housing for yourself, or were you put in a halfway house, or and after that did you go into a regular housing area, or how did that work for you?
Finding housing when I got out was I went to a place called the Oxford House, and I set that up before or actually it was one of the conditions of me getting released is to be at an Oxford House, and it was one of the things that I did pre-release. So my plan, release plan, was the only thing that I had in my hand once I set foot on step foot back outside the gate, the prison gate, was my release plan, because I wanted to follow that thing to a T, almost like a recipe, and that's what I did. And also, I had some help from the Reentry Coalition here in Fairbanks on leaving the Oxford house, I got to rent an apartment. It was just a small apartment, but it was mine. And um, for a long time, I caught myself laying there in bed in the morning, waiting for the door to pop, but the door never popped, and I got to wake up when I felt like waking up, not when I was told to wake up, and it was a culture shock for a minute for me. Also, closed doors was a big problem to me. I had to keep the doors open everywhere I stayed at because with the doors closed, I felt very isolated. So there was a lot of relearning to do when I got out. Also, this might make you laugh, but I was involved in a girl, and the girl said, "Hey, I'm going to spend the night." And I said, "I'm not looking for a cellmate." And she didn't come back over. But I didn't think before I talked, you know what I mean? And it's just the feeling of having your space again, because for a long time being locked up, you always had somebody sleeping above you if you were in the bottom bunk, or below you if you were in the top bunk, and you shared space. And I live in a 3-bedroom place now, and I live by myself, and I get to go pace around in my place, and all the doors are wide open. I'm still not over that, but yeah, I'm quite happy. I'm happy and content. 2 days ago, I was congratulated with my first house loan, so I'll be getting my own house.
Yay.
And it's a process. The Interior Regional Housing Authority is an organization here in Fairbanks, and they are willing to pay $40,000 down for me without having to pay it back as a native first home buyer. So, like I tell my consumers that I work with, my clients, I tell them all the time that I don't say something to them unless I'm ready to practice what I preach. Trust the process, right, Chet? Trust the process. And your attitude has everything to do with where you go in life. If you have an attitude of gratitude, you can't lose. So I hope that answers that question.
I think it does, and everything just lit up over here saying congratulations on your home. That is really something, and I know that you know that's not an easy thing to do, just for an average person, and for you to do it in your circumstances is astounding. So congratulations! I'm so very proud of you. Oh, we all are, and so. That really does, I think, talk about, because one of the other follow-up questions was, how long has it taken you to also get into that mentality of being adjusted and reintegrated into society? But when you said, you know, it's still a process, you know, you still have those open doors, and you're still, you know, have those moments where you have to remind yourself that you're in a different space now. It sounds like you're slowly still going through that all the time, and so and thank you for that.
Can I say one more thing then?
Sure.
Because you got the wheels turning now. So,
Good.
so when you say that adjusting part, I still am adjusting, and at the same time at work, I catch myself with sharing some of the lived experiences. I got to keep it to a minimum because of no harm be done. It's part of my profession as being and as a counselor role is to not cause the patient's harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a good mentor that's on this call right now, Marsha, that will call me out when she sees me disclosing too much about myself, or she sees me the behaviors. You know, she's really good at spotting the behaviors, and that's what I try to strive to be like, is spotting the behaviors in the people that I work with. So I think one of the things last week I was kind of triggered a little bit, because when we were talking about, there was a couple guys from jail over there, and when we were talking about jail, I noticed that my attitude sucked for the rest of the day. So I was able to talk with my therapist about it, and then my therapist says, "What do you expect after being in there so long? Do you think it's just gonna go away?" And I was like, "No, actually, I think you're onto something." So I was able to talk about it with my support group, and uncover that this is a lifelong process. I still have prison dreams. That I woke up and I wasn't in prison, when in my dream I was in prison. So definitely, I'm still going through it. I wish I wasn't, but it's a part of my life now. It's part of my story now, and RSAT also kind of brainwashed me into seeing these things. Chet can tell you that RSAT will do that to you. First thing when we wake up, we say a 5-minute saying, and if you forget the 5-minute saying, guess what? You get to start over in treatment. So it was their way of programming you, and I felt really that was necessary, because before that I was full of shit. After that, I was able to tell you the truth without looking at you and lying to you. I was able to say, hey, lying is not a part of this. And what I mean by that is my life. And the truth be told, it's better that way.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Chad or Jenny, do you want to add anything to that?
What was the question?
You know, do you guys still go through the periods of adjustment as you're resettling in, or are there moments that you have, like what Bobby shared, that you know that he still lives in those moments, or has still prison dreams, or you know catches himself, you know, still like he was talking about having to live with open doors. That's those kinds of adjustments that he makes. So, do you find yourself in those situations still?
I do. I find myself in a lot of situations where I like to be isolated because I feel safer that way. I get social anxiety really bad, and it's hard for me to go into the store just to do daily shopping. Like I get really bad anxiety when I have to go and do public events where I know there's going to be a lot of people. I have to really talk myself into it because I'm so used to being confined that it's hard to be around other people. And when I went to the halfway house, when I would go back and forth from jail to the halfway house, I would be on the inmate council in the jail and then be a resident representative for the halfway house. So I would go to the staff meetings, try to get things to open up so that we could better advocate for ourselves in the community. And one of the big tasks was to be able to have men and women mingle in the halfway houses, to have a common area so that we could be there, because we were getting thrown from being separated to mixed without the step in between. And so it would be awkward for a lot of situations, but it doesn't get you to the point where if you've been incarcerated for a long time to get back to the community, to be okay with being around more than 15 people at a time. So it was a big thing to go to church, and it was a big thing to go to family events. It was a big thing to go to the grocery store, to go to the library, to go out and look for a job, because you're mingling with other people that aren't from your environment that you're used to. So it does take a long time to get used to it.
Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. And so as we think about that, one of the things that I had asked for all of you was to say what were some of the most difficult struggles for you when you first got out? What was the greatest challenge for you and when you first were released? Now I know, Chet, for you that was even though that was 5 years ago, that and you were saying that there wasn't much of a preparation for you at that time within DOC, but and Bobby maybe the same, and I know Jenny, you're still fairly new, but if you can think back, what were some of the things that were the most challenging for you as a reentrant back into the community, that maybe as we as service providers could learn from, whether that was a resource or whether that was a individual or whether that was something that we could help change in the way that we provide services to you.
For me, it was that there were just so many obstacles. I've heard somebody say that the opportunities need to outweigh the barriers. Well, I found very few opportunities and a whole lot of barriers in everything, to finding a job, to finding a place to live. I mean, I picked up from a TED Talks, to have hope, you have to have a goal. You have to have at least one path to achieve that goal, and you have to have the belief that you can achieve the goal. I think the reason a lot of people don't have hope that are getting out is because they run into all these barriers and they don't see a viable path to achieving a goal of anything close to normalcy. Especially when you get out and, you're really 90% of the people, their only opportunity is a dishwashing job. So beyond that, as something at a living wage, something that provides fulfillment. That was the biggest obstacles I had, was trying to find a meaningful purpose, and I didn't, and I didn't get any support in that until I found, the Native Men's Wellness Program, and then Family Wellness Warriors, which is where I work now, and the communities within those work groups. What I found was institutional bias. That was the biggest issue, not on a statutory level. I mean, we have so many stupid barriers. I mean, somebody gets picked up for shoplifting and they have a 3-year barrier. What good does that achieve? And the way that Alaska has had a knee-jerk response to get tough on crime and the things that they're doing, yeah, I'll get off that horse. I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Okay.
I'd like to chime in with, one of the ways that we could maybe look at helping with removing some of those barriers is maybe getting forensic peer support started inside the prison. That way, when they are released, they could have peer support as a potential opportunity for employment. So if we can do that, even during the pandemic, we can do this through our education department, even if it's one person at a time. I know that there's jobs for peer support, especially after January 1st. There's the 1115 waiver here in Alaska is going to be billing Medicaid for peer support services. And I would like to see some planning go around this. The sooner the better. And because right now there's a lot of training, but it's out here and it's through Zoom. We've been trying to go around that because, the no thrills bill saying that we can't have internet inside prison. Well, maybe, like in, how do you call it? In Goose Creek, they have the kiosks where they get to email people. Maybe we could do it through email and through maybe through like True North Recovery, our True North Church has a TV station where they get to watch church inside a prison. Maybe we could do it, an instructor doing it through a TV channel, broadcast network. There's a lot of different there's not a lot of different different ways of doing this, but I think that what DOC can do to better help the reentrant is really taking a good look at implementing that on a national level. Peer support. I'm going to say peer support every day until somebody listens to me. And peer support is actually became a part of the organization I work for. And I feel that I kept saying peer support until peer support showed up one day. It's just so important because a peer helping another peer is powerful. It's one of the most powerful things that they're realizing today, and we should utilize that.
Okay, thank you very much. Jenny, did you have anything?
I also agree with peer support, that peer support helps, because who better to trust than somebody that was there with you, that has the lived experience. But I also want to add too that I went through, while I was in the halfway house, I went through the Second Chance program with Tlingit and Haida Central Council here in Juneau. And I worked with Talia Ames, actually, who had saw in me that I didn't see in myself at that time, that I had more worth than I was doing. So I was working at a hotel as a front desk person, and I would go in and see Talia at the Second Chance program for Tlingit and Haida and meet with her, and then she finally was like, we need to get you out of that job and get you a better one. And so she had helped me get a work experience, because I was in jail for so long, to get my skills up to par, that I ended up getting a receptionist position at the Regional Housing Authority here in Juneau, and then had moved to an accounting specialist, where I had now moved to the payroll technician for Tlingit and Haida right now. But without that Second Chance program and the Haven House, where I had lived after I got out of the halfway house, without those two programs, I wouldn't be where I am today, because those were the steps that I needed to get out to the community. So I think that the Reentry program is a big part of helping recidivism. And I saw on there that they were talking about dreams of jail, and I actually haven't had a prison dream in probably 4 or 5 months, which is great. But I've also been working on a lot of steps within myself to get to the person that I am today. And so peer support and reentry and recovery and just the steps that are needed, like the transitional living, the transitional home, which was a part of my parole aspect, was to live in a transitional home for 6 months before I could be out on my own. So these programs are really good and really vital to have when you get out of prison.
Mm-hmm. Those are all very, very good ideas. And I really like how, Bobby, that you're thinking outside the box of saying, that if we can't do it this way, there's these other options. And so, that I think that if we think outside the box and put, our minds together, that there is a solution somewhere. In a way to provide peer support within DOC. And I know that DOC has been, in talking with Joann on some other programs that we're partnering on, that these are the kinds of conversations that we've been looking for and saying, we want to know what are some things that you think about, or some ways that we can have these kinds of conversations or have these kinds of ideas to be shared. And all of you, when you're talking about, these barriers or these struggles that you've had, when we think about the ways that you have overcome those, one of the things that I hear as a common thread through all of that is that you found a way that something connected for you. And I think I heard that yesterday. For those of you that joined us yesterday, that one of the things that they wanted was not just a job, not just a way to make a living, but something that sustained them beyond that. And I think, Chet, that's kind of what you were alluding to when you're saying, you want something that provides you something long term, a skill. And yesterday, one of the panelists talked about that because her her probation officer was trying to talk her into taking another route. And she said, no, I want to gain a skill. So I want to go into culinary school. That's what I really want to do. Because she knew that going back onto the reservation, that was something that a sustainable skill, because not only could she learn how to cook, but that was something that she could not only sustain her own family with, her own community with, but also that was a job that she could use on the reservation in her community. And so from that perspective, it was very important. And I think one of the comments that I saw also was from one of our, I think someone that works in the court system, and saying, it's really important to have some culturally informed services as well, to provide cultural training for people that provide these services, to understand from a cultural perspective of why sometimes we don't, that it's important to know why that as reentrants, you choose the path that you do. Because that ties back into the cultural ways that you're trying to also pull back into your life. And I think all three of you have kind of talked about that as well, especially you, Chet, when you talked about, having that that spiritual reawakening that was really key for you. And you said, however, it's not a religious experience. It was more of a spiritual awakening, and that's not uncommon for I think Indigenous individuals that will go get incarcerated, that they really sometimes don't have a very strong cultural tie when they go into the system, but when they come back out, that's one of their main ways that they return to that. And Jenny, for you, that was something that you grew up with, and then at some point you kind of moved away from that. But now that you're back in the community, that's really been one of your ways that you've really taken that back onto into your life. And so I think that's also a common thread through all of this. And I think that's why, peer support, when we think about that, that's that community that we think about, when we say we want somebody to, that I think, Jenny, you said that really well when you said, who better to trust, than someone who's been there with you. And that's a key thing, that trust and being able to relate to that, and sometimes that's being able to do that with someone that that you have a common bond with, whether that's from a cultural perspective or whether that's someone that's lived that same experience with you, or has the training to be able to understand some of the things that you've gone through. So thank you very, very much for for you guys sharing some of those things. Some of the other,
Nan,
yes.
I also wanted to add also that I am back actively in my culture,
Mm-hmm.
and I have started a dance group to carry on the traditions that I've been taught.
Yes, you have. And I also want to point out that Jenny actually has given permission to share a video that she has available, and we're going to post it because it's actually on YouTube. And so we're going to post it where you guys can download it and be able to see it. But it's a beautiful video of part of her story and about what she does and how it's kind of, she talks about her lived experiences and everything. So I hope that you'll be able to also see that in relation to what we're doing today. Let's continue on. We're just about out of time. I'm so sorry. Is there any last things that you could say that you would want us to know that's really important? We have only a couple more minutes left that you would want us to walk away with, that you think is very, very important that we should know, given the time that we have left, that you want us to remember. Yes, Bobby?
I just wanted to say, while I was incarcerated, there was a thing called NCC, Native Culture Club.
Mhm.
And I just wanted that to continue in Alaska, and I wanted to give kudos to Shannon McLeod for allowing that in Wildwood, Kenai prison. And I think for the most part, her and Medina, Sergeant Medina, went above and beyond their, out of their way to make sure that that continued. And what they did was, what NCC was doing was they were having potlatches, actually getting, salmon from the canneries in the area, making dry strips and smoked salmon, and purchasing a reindeer through selling sodas and bags of chips and all, pillows and comforters and all that. And they would make a profit, and they would purchase a reindeer from one of the reindeer herds there in one of the islands close to Kenai. And they would butcher it and cook it up and invite case managers and Department of Correction officers and a family member. And they would have a potlatch once a year. Also, they had a sweat lodge, and they had a sweat once a week. And they were doing things in there that really gave a lot of natives hope of one day returning to what they left behind. And it was a very spiritual thing, especially with the four colors, the four directions, and all that. I was able to partake in that, and it was amazing. And I just wanted to bring that to my story. That was one of the factors that helped me while I was inside. And once I got out, I was a part of the Midnight Sun Powwow here in Fairbanks, which is the Soaring Eagle drum group. And I was able to practice drumming with them and singing, and I had no clue what I was doing, but it was awesome. I had a lot of fun doing it. So some of the things that I've done is actually that I had on my schedule, and that I made it a point not to miss these events, because it was really powerful. And with the pandemic going on, we don't gather anymore like that, but I sure long for it. And I just wanted you all to know that I was also taught traditionally as a kid, and speak my language. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And I'll probably be reaching out to you, Bobby, because I've been in contact with the DOC on the East Coast and in DC here with the chaplaincy organization, and they're looking for a lot of resources like what you're talking about for their Native American population within DOC. And so that would be awesome because, you know, they do have like sweat lodges and those types of things. But I think that's really important within DOC to have, you know, more connections and more resources that we can all share for people that are incarcerated, because they do get isolated and they get taken away from their own culture. And I know that when I was talking to the chairperson, the chairwoman from Nevada, the state of Nevada, they were having some problems within their Department of Corrections regarding some sweat lodges and things like that too. So it would be a good thing that if we in some way kept those lines of communication amongst everyone. So thank you for sharing that. So going back to our final question before we wrap up, is there anything that you think is very important that you leave us with? A thing that you would want us to know before we have to wrap it up here? And that's anything that you may want to share. No?
I think I said everything I needed to say for now.
Okay. Because this isn't your last time that we're going to speak with you. I hope not. Because I know that this is our first time that we have done, did this type of webinar, and it was amazing that the state of Alaska was good and coming. So I think Jenny wanted to say something. Jenny?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for having us speak on your panel today. That it was really delightful, and that I know that I'm proud to get my story out there and to make sure that people know that they can come to us for help for any type of reason, and just to let other people know that are on the other side, so that our voices get heard, because oftentimes we're going to speak for those who can't speak right now.
Right. Yeah. And I just have this in the one of the challenges that was given out to DOC, that that they reach out to the tribes and not the other way around. It is the responsibility of the justice agencies to seek out the knowledge, and so being able to ask us rather than us teaching you. I think is the bottom line of that sharing. And I'm really glad that all of you have come here to share what you can and what you're willing to. I know that this isn't easy, and the courage that you have shared with us in your own personal lives, and being able to show us and remind us how we need to care for one another, and we need to be mindful in the work that we do, that what we say and what we do and how we connect with one another is very, very important. And I think sometimes we get disconnected from that. The other day we were talking about that even as frontline workers, that you are all the time talking to one another and know these stories firsthand. You hear them firsthand. But the further away that you get into the policies and procedures, or into the administrative part of it, you get disconnected from that. Yet you're still advocating on behalf of people like you. And it's still important to remember these stories and to see these faces, and to be mindful of that as we continue that work, no matter at what level. And I was reminded of that just several weeks ago in the work that I do, that there was a disconnect of that. And I thought about that later, and I thought, it's not so much that people are forgetting how to talk to one another respectfully. That in our world, that if we feel that you're disrespecting an elder within our community, that we take affront to it, that we protect our elders. And so if we feel that they are being disrespected by anyone outside of our community, that we will stand up for them. And that was what was happening in this particular conversation. And I understood that. And so, and sometimes when we do that, it makes me feel better that in some ways that we are still hanging on to the ways that we take care of one another, no matter where we are at. And I think when you told your stories today, that was important to hear from you, that you're taking care of each other, because each and every one of you, no matter where you have been and how you have lived your lives, that is what I heard, that you are taking care of others still. You're working in programs that are meaningful. You're working as counselors. You're working in programs that are giving back. And just kind of like what Jenny was saying, she says, this is something I don't get paid to do this. This is something that I do as part of my life. This is something that I need to do as part of my own healing. And I think that each of you are doing that as that piece as well. And so thank you for sharing these pieces of yourself with us. And I know that for myself, it's such an honor to have spent these moments with you. And I know that I've met each of you on a different level. And Chet, I think I've known you the longest when we first met. That it was you and your family have been such a blessing in my life, even across the many miles that we've been. That there's always a Dinesh somewhere. And so, and even with Bobby, when we first got together, we said, well, it's somewhere there's always a Navajo somewhere, there's always a Dinesh somewhere. And we laughed about that. And so it is good to know that my relatives and and even Jenny, my sister, is somewhere, that we, in some way, we all connect in that way. We're all relatives. We are all brothers and sisters in this world. And so if anybody else has anything else to say, I hope that you guys have been able to see the chats. And I know that everybody is just so thrilled that and thanking you for all of your sharing and all of the wonderful stories that you've had, and wishing you well. I hope you're able to see all of those things, and it's just been a wonderful thing that you are blessing us with.
I have one thing to say before we end it. Is Janice asked perhaps one thing that that you wish you had known when you were being released. The anxiety level. I wish I would have known more about the anxiety that was going to take effect. I wasn't ready for that, so maybe just a little bit of classes on anxiety, or on on some of the how you're gonna feel. Especially, I couldn't imagine what 30 years would feel like getting out. Probably looked at a cell phone and said, "What am I gonna do with that thing?" You know what I mean? I had way less than that, and I was kind of staring at my phone for about a week before I actually picked it up. Yeah, so that's what the answer to that is. And also, I wanted to say before my last thing I wanted to say was nothing for us without us. What I mean by that is, if you don't have an OPSIS number, and which a lot of people don't have an OPSIS number, then they're not us. And what I'd like to see continue to happen is the guys like Chet and myself and Jenny and whatnot, the people that are in reentry, that actually are a reentrant, we have an access number and we have a voice and we want to sit at the table and be a part of the decisions for us. So nothing without us, or nothing for us without us. It's a powerful statement, and I want that to carry far in this discussion today.
Absolutely. And I stand by that 100% too. That's why we continue to advocate that you should be at this table. Absolutely. And I thank you for that. And I think that's a good, very, very good place to stop. Yeah, all of you. Okay, and then with that, I think that we're all done. And thank you, everyone. Be sure to get the handouts. I just wanted to remind you that on the membership drive, if you weren't able to join us, that's what one of the handouts are for. We're doing a special on membership. I think that we've had some very, very good beginnings of these conversations, and we hope that you'll join us on the APPA Connect on the talking circles that we have as a group there to continue some of these conversations. And also the handout that Joann had provided us for on the statistics. And then also the information regarding Jenny's video. I really, really encourage you guys to see that video. It's on YouTube. So, and if you're not able to access it, please get hold of us and we will provide that for you, the information on that. So everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you very, very much for joining us today, and have a good one. Thank you, guys. Bye, bye.
Later. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Jenny. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. I'll call you later.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay.
Thank you, Chet. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Dan. All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Joann.